Commander Tae-ho Kim stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council station and felt very small. The room stretched upward like a cathedral, with walls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Around him sat representatives from 43 different species, each one older than humanity's entire civilization. Their eyes, in all their alien forms, watched him with something between curiosity and concern. Beside him, diplomat Yun-hee Choi adjusted her translation device. Her hands were steady, but Tae-ho noticed the tension in her shoulders. They had been summoned here without explanation 3 days ago. Emergency session, the message had said. Humanity's presence required. High Arbiter Velnor rose from the center platform. He was Keltharian, which meant his body looked like crystal and smoke mixed together, constantly shifting. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "We have discovered something disturbing about humanity," Velnor said. "Something that threatens the stability of our galactic community." Tae-ho exchanged a glance with Yun-hee. Threatening? Humanity had been part of the galactic community for only 15 years. They had followed every rule, signed every treaty, and kept to themselves mostly. What could they have possibly done? A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth rotating slowly. Then the image changed, rolling backward through time. Continents shifted. Ice sheets grew and shrank. Oceans rose and fell. 75,000 years ago, Velnor continued, a supervolcano erupted on your world. The ash blocked out your sun for years. Temperatures dropped. Plants died. Animals starved. Your population fell to less than 10,000 individuals. The hologram showed small groups of humans huddled in caves, struggling to survive. Tae-ho had learned about this in school, but seeing it displayed here felt different. Shameful somehow. "You should have gone extinct," Velnor said flatly. "Every model we have run confirms it. With such a small population, with such limited genetic diversity, with such catastrophic environmental collapse, extinction was inevitable. Yet you survived." The hologram shifted forward in time. It showed ice ages, plagues, wars. Each time, humanity's numbers dropped. Each time they recovered. 12,000 years ago, an ice age killed most large animals on your planet. You survived. 5,000 years ago, multiple plagues spread across your continents. You survived. 700 years ago, you developed nuclear weapons. Most species destroy themselves at this stage. You survived. 300 years ago, your climate collapsed. You survived. 158 years ago, an asteroid struck your planet. You survived. Velnor's form flickered with what might have been anger. 6 extinction-level events. 6 times you should have died out completely. 6 times you refused to die. Tae-ho felt a strange mix of pride and confusion. "Forgive me, High Arbiter, but why is our survival a problem? Isn't survival the point?" A murmur ran through the council chamber. Several representatives shifted in their seats. Ambassador Quillix, a Torvani who looked like a walking tree, leaned forward with interest. "Survival through luck is natural," Velnor replied. "Survival through evolution is expected. But survival through sheer stubborn refusal to accept death? That is something else entirely. That is dangerous." Yun-hee stepped forward. "Dangerous to whom?" Another hologram appeared. This one showed a timeline of galactic history stretching back millions of years. Red markers dotted the timeline like drops of blood. 17 times in galactic history, Velnor explained, a species has developed what we call extinction resistance. The ability to survive catastrophes that should have killed them. Each time these species became aggressive, expansionist, and destabilizing. 14 of them destroyed multiple neighboring civilizations before they were stopped. The other 3 destroyed themselves in civil wars. The chamber fell silent. Tae-ho felt the weight of those words. He looked at the timeline, at the red markers, and understood what the council feared. They thought humanity would become like those others. They thought humans were a plague waiting to spread. "We are not them," Tae-ho said quietly. "We have been peaceful members of this community." "For 15 years, Velnor shot back. 15 years against millions of years of evidence. Extinction-resistant species always follow the same pattern. First they explore, then they expand, then they consume. It is not personal, Commander. It is simply what your kind of species does." Yun-hee's voice was sharp. "Our kind of species? You mean survivors?" "I mean anomalies," Velnor replied. "Evolution has rules. When a species faces extinction and survives through adaptation, They change. They become something new. You did not change. You remained aggressive, innovative, and individualistic. Those traits help you survive catastrophes, but they make you incompatible with civilized society. Ambassador Quillix spoke for the first time, his voice like wind through leaves. High Arbiter, perhaps we should hear their response before passing judgment. Velnor's form rippled. Very well. The Council has prepared a solution. We call it guided evolution. We will modify human genetics to reduce aggression, increase social cohesion, and align your psychology with galactic norms. We will guide your cultural development to emphasize cooperation over competition, stability over innovation. Within 3 generations, humanity will be compatible with the rest of us. Tejo felt cold. They wanted to change what humans were. They wanted to make humanity into something safe, something manageable, something that fit their idea of civilized. They wanted to strip away everything that had helped humans survive. And if we refuse, he asked. Then you will be quarantined, Velnor said. No trade, no technology sharing, no contact with other species. You will be alone in the galaxy, cut off from the community you fought so hard to join. The chamber waited. Every eye watched Tejo and Yunhee. This was the moment that would define humanity's future among the stars. Accept modification and survive as something else, or refuse and face isolation. Tejo thought about his grandmother. She had lived through Earth's climate wars, through the water shortages and food riots. She had told him stories about how people had helped each other, how communities had shared what little they had, how humanity had refused to give up even when every forecast said they were doomed. She had survived because humans adapted, because they were stubborn, because they refused to let catastrophe have the final word. We refuse, Tejo said clearly. We will not be modified. We will not be changed into something we are not. If survival makes us anomalies, then we are anomalies. But we will survive as ourselves or not at all. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted in approval, others in outrage. Velnor's form flickered rapidly, a sign of agitation. Quillix raised a branch-like arm, calling for silence. Perhaps, he said thoughtfully, we should allow humanity to prove themselves. Give them time to demonstrate that their extinction resistance is not a threat, but a strength. Velnor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Very well. Humanity will have 90 days to prove that they deserve their place in this community unchanged. 90 days to show us that you are different from the 17 species that came before you. 90 days to convince us that your survival instinct is not a danger to us all. He turned his shifting gaze on Tejo. But understand this, Commander. If you fail, if you cannot prove your worth, then the quarantine will be permanent. No second chances. No appeals. Humanity will be alone in the darkness between stars. Tejo nodded. 90 days. We will prove ourselves. As the council session ended and the representatives filed out, Yunhee leaned close to Tejo. How are we going to do that? How do we prove that surviving makes us valuable instead of dangerous? Tejo watched the hologram fade, the image of Earth disappearing into darkness. I don't know yet, but we have survived 6 impossible things already. We can survive this too. They left the chamber together, walking through corridors filled with species who had never faced extinction, who had never known what it meant to stand on the edge of the abyss and choose to keep going. For the first time since reaching the stars, Tejo understood that humanity's greatest strength might also be their greatest curse. They had endured when they should have died out. Now they had to prove that their endurance was worth something. Dr. Haywan Park stared at the genetic scan results and felt her heart race. The data made no sense. Or rather, it made perfect sense, which was the problem. It explained everything about humanity, and that explanation terrified her. She was sitting in Research Station Omega, a facility that orbited between 3 solar systems. Around her, screens displayed genetic codes, neural scans, and cultural analysis from dozens of species. She had been working for 20 days straight, barely sleeping, trying to find proof that humanity deserved to exist unchanged. You need to see this, she said to Ambassador Quillix, who had quietly offered to help humanity's case. The Torvani moved closer, his wooden body creaking softly. What have you found? Quillix asked. Haywan pulled up 2 brain scans side by side. One was human, one was Keltharian. She pointed to clusters of neural pathways highlighted in blue. This region handles cooperation and social bonding, she explained. Most species have it centralized in one area. Humans have it distributed across multiple brain regions. We can cooperate in more complex ways, form social bonds faster, and maintain larger networks of relationships. She switched to another scan comparison. This area handles problem solving. Other species have linear pathways, efficient and predictable. Humans have these branching networks. We can think of multiple solutions simultaneously, even contradictory ones, and switch between them rapidly. Quillix was silent, studying the scans. The supervolcano, he said finally. You think it forced these changes? I know it did, HFY replied. She pulled up a timeline. Before the eruption, human brains were more like other species, more standard. After the bottleneck, when the population was reduced to less than 10,000, something changed. The survivors were the ones who could cooperate under extreme stress, who could solve problems creatively when traditional solutions failed, who could form strong emotional bonds that kept groups together when everything else fell apart. She highlighted sections of genetic code. These mutations appeared within a few generations of the bottleneck. They spread through the population rapidly, because they were the difference between survival and death. We did not just survive the volcano. It made us what we are. Quillix leaned back. This will help, but Vellner will say it proves his point, that your adaptations make you too different, too dangerous. HFY nodded. She had thought the same thing. She moved to another screen, this one showing cultural artifacts from human history. There is something else, she said. Something no other species has done. She displayed images of cave paintings from 40,000 years ago, paintings of animals, hunters, and disasters, then clay tablets from ancient Sumeria showing flood stories, then medieval manuscripts describing plagues, then digital records from the climate wars. Humans document catastrophes, she explained, not just what happened, but how people survived. Every culture on Earth has stories about disasters and survival. We pass them down through generations. Songs, myths, written records, digital archives. We remember when we almost died. Quillix moved closer to the screens. Other species forget their near extinctions. They move on. Exactly, HFY said. When I asked the Keltharian archives about their species' close calls, do you know what I found? Almost nothing. They had one near-extinction event 3 million years ago. Their records mention it in one paragraph. Humans have entire libraries dedicated to the supervolcano alone. She pulled up more data. We call it catastrophe culture. Every generation of humans grows up learning that the world can end, that survival is not guaranteed, that you have to be prepared. It makes us anxious sometimes, maybe even paranoid, but it also means we never forget the lessons that kept us alive. For the first time since they started working together, Quillix made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are saying that humans survived because you cannot stop thinking about death. Basically, yes, HFY admitted. Other species reach stability and relax. Humans reach stability and prepare for the next catastrophe. It is not healthy, probably, but it kept us alive. She was about to show him more data when her communication device blinked. A message from Tejo. She opened it and felt her stomach sink. What is wrong? Quillix asked. Vellner commissioned his own research team, she said quietly. They found something. The data Vellner's team had compiled was devastating. It showed patterns across galactic history. Every extinction-resistant species had started peacefully. They had joined the galactic community with good intentions. They had seemed harmless. Then, within 100 years, they had begun to expand aggressively. Within 200 years, they were at war with their neighbors. Within 300 years, they had either been destroyed or had destroyed everything around them. The patterns were identical across all 17 cases. First came trade expansion. Then came cultural influence. Then came military buildups. Then came conflict. It was like a disease, spreading from peaceful beginnings to violent ends. Vellner had presented this to the Council 2 days ago. He had shown that humanity was already following the pattern. 15 years in, humans had established trade routes with 12 species. They were building cultural centers on 17 worlds. They were training their people in alien languages and customs. They are infiltrating us, Vellner had argued in his presentation, just like the others did. They appear friendly, but they are positioning themselves for expansion. It is not deliberate. It is their nature. They cannot help it. HFY sat in her quarters on the research station and felt despair creeping in. How could she argue against millions of years of evidence? How could she prove that humans were different when every data point said they were the same? Her communication device blinked again. This time it was Captain Sung-Min Lee, commander of the survey vessel Endurance. His face appeared on the screen and he looked excited. "Dr. Park, I need to show you something," he said. "We found ruins in the Veiled Sector." Hei-Wan felt a chill. The Veiled Sector was forbidden. Ancient galactic law prohibited anyone from entering it. No one even remembered why anymore, just that it was dangerous. "What kind of ruins?" she asked. "The kind that might change everything," Sung-Min replied. "I am sending you our scans now." The data appeared on her screen. Structures, massive and ancient, built by a species that had been dead for millions of years. But the architectural style, the technological signatures, the patterns of development, they looked human, not identical but similar. Too similar to be coincidence. Who were they? Hei-Wan whispered. "We do not know yet," Sung-Min said. "But according to our analysis, they survived at least 7 extinction-level events on their homeworld. They developed faster than light travel. They joined the ancient galactic community." Hei-Wan understood immediately. They were like us, extinction-resistant. Yes, and they survived in the galaxy for 10,000 years. They were part of the community longer than any current species except the Torvani. They were not a plague. They were not destructive. They were successful. She felt hope rising. This could prove that Velnor is wrong. That extinction-resistant species can be stable members of the community. "There is more," Sung-Min said. His excitement faded, replaced by concern. "We need to go deeper into the ruins to learn what happened to them, to find out why they eventually died out, but the Council will not give us permission to enter the Veiled Sector." "Then do not ask permission," Hei-Wan said. The words were out before she could stop them. "We have 40 days left to prove ourselves. If this is the proof we need, then we have to get it." Sung-Min was quiet for a moment. "That would be treason. Violating quarantine zones is one of the few universal laws. We could start a war." "We are already at war," Hei-Wan replied. "A quiet one, fought with data and votes, but a war nonetheless. Either we prove humanity deserves to exist as we are, or we lose everything that makes us human. I would rather break a law and find the truth than follow the rules and accept extinction of our identity." She could see Sung-Min thinking, weighing options. Finally, he nodded. "I will need Commander Kim's authorization, and I will need you on the Endurance. If we are going to study these ruins, we need someone who understands what we are looking for." "I will get Taiho's approval," Hei-Wan promised, "and I will be ready to leave in 6 hours." After the call ended, she sat in the darkness of her quarters and thought about what she was about to do. Breaking into the Veiled Sector was not just illegal. It was dangerous. Species had disappeared trying to explore it. Ancient security systems, radiation, spatial anomalies. The list of hazards was long and frightening. But she thought about the brain scans, about the catastrophe culture, about humanity's stubborn refusal to accept death. If they were going to prove they deserved their place in the galaxy, they could not do it by playing safe. They had to take risks, push boundaries, search for truth even when truth was hidden behind danger. She contacted Taiho and explained the situation. He authorized the mission without hesitation. "Be careful," he said, "but find the answers we need. Humanity is depending on you." As the Endurance prepared to depart for the Veiled Sector, Hei-Wan received one final message from Quilix. "I cannot openly support this mission," the old ambassador wrote, "but I will ensure that the Council does not know you are gone until you are too deep in the Veiled Sector to be stopped easily." The Endurance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Veiled Sector, and Captain Sung-Min felt his hands tighten on the command console. Space here looked wrong. Stars flickered in patterns that hurt to watch. Energy readings spiked and dropped randomly. This was why the sector was forbidden. "All crew, stay alert," he said over the ship's communication system. "We do not know what killed the last 3 ships that entered this sector. Do not assume anything is safe." Dr. Hei-Wan stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the view screen. The ruins were visible now, massive structures floating in the void. They had once been cities, perhaps, or research stations. Now they were corpses of a dead civilization. Commander Taiho had insisted on joining the mission, despite Yunhee's protests that losing humanity's chief negotiator would be a disaster. He stood on the other side of the command deck, studying tactical displays. "The structures are still powered," the ship's engineer reported. "After millions of years, something is still generating energy." "That should be impossible," Hei-Wan said. But she smiled as she said it. which means we might find data that is still preserved. Records that survived. Sungmin guided the Endurance closer. The ruins grew larger, filling the view screen. Up close, he could see details. Windows that reflected no light. Doors sealed shut, writing in a language that looked almost familiar. That script, Haewon breathed. It has the same structural patterns as human writing. Subject-verb-object flow. Phonetic symbols combined with pictographs. My God, they wrote like we do. The ship docked with the largest structure. The boarding team suited up in protective gear. The ruins might still have atmosphere, but after millions of years it would not be breathable. They moved through the airlock and into the dead city. The interior was preserved perfectly. No dust, no decay. Emergency lighting still functioned, casting everything in a pale blue glow. The boarding team moved through corridors that felt designed for humans. The ceiling height was right. The doorway proportions were familiar. Even the furniture, when they found rooms with furniture, looked like it was built for bodies shaped like theirs. It is like walking through a human city from the future, Taeho said quietly. Everything is advanced, but everything makes sense to us. They found a central chamber that looked like a library or data center. Screens lined the walls, inactive but intact. Haewon approached the nearest console and studied it. Their interface is touch-based, she said. Icons arranged by function. It is intuitive. She pressed a symbol that looked like it might mean power or start. The console flickered to life. Text appeared on the screen. Haewon's translation device struggled for a moment, then began converting the ancient language into something readable. I am reading their history, she said, her voice shaking. They called themselves the Predecessors. Their homeworld experienced 7 major extinction events: asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, ice ages, pandemics. Each time their population crashed. Each time they survived. She scrolled through more data. They developed space travel 3 million years ago. They met the ancient galactic community. They were welcomed cautiously the same way we were. The ancient council feared them. What happened? Taeho asked. How did they prove themselves? Haewon read silently for a long time. They did prove themselves. For 10,000 years, they were model citizens. They traded fairly, shared technology, helped other species. They were not aggressive. They were not expansionist. They were stable. Then why are they gone? Sungmin asked. Haewon opened another file. This one contained medical records, population data, and what looked like emergency reports. Her face went pale as she read. They became too civilized, she whispered. The galactic community did not force them to change. They changed voluntarily. They looked at other species who had achieved stability and peace, and they decided to become like them. They modified their culture, reduced competition, emphasized harmony over innovation. She pulled up genetic records. They even began voluntary genetic adjustments. Not forced like what Velnor wants to do to us, but chosen. Each generation selected for traits that made them more like other species. Less aggressive, more cooperative, more predictable. That sounds positive, Taeho said. It was positive, Haewon replied. For 9,000 years, they were the most peaceful, stable species in the galaxy. They had no wars, no conflicts, no disasters. They had perfect harmony. She opened a final set of files. Then a plague appeared. It came from outside the galaxy, something no one had encountered before. It spread fast and mutated rapidly. Species needed to adapt quickly to survive it. The data showed population curves, all of them dropping sharply. The plague killed 60% of galactic species within 50 years. But most species recovered. They adapted, developed immunity, changed their biology to fight the disease. Haewon's hands trembled as she highlighted the predecessors' data. The predecessors could not adapt. They had spent 10,000 years removing their ability to change rapidly. They had bred out their survival instincts, their aggressive immune responses, their tendency to try risky solutions. When the plague hit them, they tried to solve it peacefully, methodically, carefully. The population curve for the predecessors did not recover. It dropped to 0. They went extinct in 47 years, Haewon said. Not because they were violent or destructive. Not because they were a plague on the galaxy. They went extinct because they had made themselves too civilized to survive a catastrophe. The boarding team stood in silence, absorbing the terrible irony. The predecessors had done everything right. They had become perfect galactic citizens, and that perfection had killed them. We need to broadcast this, Taeho said finally. The galaxy needs to know that extinction-resistant species do not automatically become destructive. They only become destructive if you try to force them to change. Sung-min was about to respond when alarms screamed through his suit's communication system. "Captain, we have incoming ships. Council warships. They are demanding we surrender. How did they find us so fast?" Taeho demanded. "Velnor must have been watching us," Sung-min replied. "He knew we would look for evidence. He was waiting for us to break the law so he could arrest us." They ran back to the Endurance, carrying data storage devices loaded with everything they could download from the predecessor archives. Behind them, the dead city fell dark again, its secrets shared but its silence permanent. On the ship, Sung-min reviewed their tactical situation. 6 Council warships surrounded them. The Endurance was a survey vessel, not a fighter. In a direct confrontation, they would lose. "We cannot fight them," he said, "but we can outrun them. The Endurance is faster than those warships." "If we run, Velnor will claim we are confirming his fears," Taeho said. "He will say we are acting exactly like the dangerous species he claims we are." "If we surrender, he will suppress this data," Haewon countered. "He will make sure the galaxy never knows the truth about the predecessors. Everything we found here will be buried." Sung-min made his decision. "We run, and while we run, we broadcast everything. Send the data to every news network, every diplomatic channel, every public database we can reach. Flood the galaxy with the truth before Velnor can stop it." The Endurance's engines roared to life. Council warships opened fire, but Sung-min had already plotted an escape route through the spatial anomalies that made the veiled sector so dangerous. He pushed the ship through spaces where physics worked differently, where normal ships could not follow. Behind him, Haewon worked at the communication console. She compressed the predecessor data into packets and fired them across the galaxy. Thousands of transmissions, all containing the same information. The truth about extinction-resistant species. The truth about what really made them dangerous. The Council warships fell behind, unable to match the Endurance's speed through the dangerous space. Sung-min guided them out of the veiled sector and into normal space. "Broadcast complete," Haewon reported. "The data is spreading across the galactic network. Velnor cannot suppress it now." Sung-min allowed himself a moment of relief before the next problem hit. His communication console lit up with an incoming message. It was Ambassador Quillix, and he looked deeply troubled. "Captain Lee, what you did was necessary, but the consequences will be severe," Quillix said. "The Council has issued arrest warrants for you, Commander Kim. And Dr. Park. You are charged with violating quarantine laws, theft of protected data, and fleeing Council authority." "What about the data we broadcast?" Taeho asked. "Does the galaxy know the truth now?" "They know," Quillix confirmed. "And it has caused chaos. Some species are demanding the Council explain why they hid information about the predecessors. Others are calling for humanity to be expelled immediately for breaking the law. The Council is divided. The galaxy is divided," he paused. "I have spent my long life trying to maintain peace and order. What you have done has shattered that order. But perhaps order built on hidden truth was not worth maintaining." The communication ended. Sung-min looked at his crew, at Taeho and Haewon, and saw the weight of what they had done settling on everyone's shoulders. "We broke the law," he said. "We will face consequences for that. But we also gave humanity a fighting chance." Taeho nodded. The galaxy was breaking apart, and Yoon-hee Choi watched it happen from the diplomatic quarter of Meridian Prime. Through the windows of her office, she could see protests in the streets. 3 different species demonstrating, each with their own signs and chants. The traditionalists, led by Velnor's supporters, demanded humanity be expelled from the galaxy immediately. They carried signs saying law must be upheld and safety over sentiment. The reformists, inspired by Quillix and the predecessor data, called for accepting humanity as they were. They chanted evolution through diversity and remember the predecessors. The isolationists wanted humanity gone but did not care about the law or the history. They simply feared humans and wanted them far away. Their signs were blunter. Humans go home and not our problem. Yoon-hee had been trying to negotiate for 3 weeks. Every day she met with representatives from different factions. Every day the positions grew more extreme. The center was collapsing. Her communication device blinked. A message from Earth's government. They were scared. Colonies on human worlds reported harassment. Human ships were being denied docking rights at some stations. Trade agreements were being canceled. Ambassador Choi, the message read, "We need to consider the guided evolution program. Our people are suffering. Maybe if we agree to be modified, the galaxy will accept us." Yun-hee felt sick. She had been a refugee during Earth's climate wars. She had seen what happened when people gave up their identity to survive. They survived, yes, but they lost something essential. They became hollow. Before she could respond, alarms blared across the station. Not protest alarms, emergency alerts. Something was attacking. She ran to the command center. Screens showed chaos. In the veiled sector, something had activated. An ancient defense system, massive and automated. It had launched weapons at nearby star systems. 3 colonies had been destroyed in minutes. High Arbiter Velnor stood at the center of the command center, his crystalline form flickering rapidly. "This is what happens when laws are broken," he said, pointing at Yun-hee. "Your people woke something in the veiled sector. This is your fault." "We did not activate any defense system," Yun-hee protested. "We only read data from the predecessor archives." "Your presence was enough," Velnor snapped. "The sector was sealed for a reason. Now people are dying because humans could not follow simple rules." On the screens, the defense system launched another wave of attacks. Its weapons were beyond anything the modern galaxy had. They tore through shields like paper. They destroyed ships before crews could react. The Galactic Council tried to respond. They sent their best warships, their most advanced weapons. Nothing worked. The defense system adapted to every attack. It learned from every engagement. Within hours, it had mapped the Council's entire military capability and developed counters to all of it. Ambassador Quillix entered the command center, moving faster than Yun-hee had ever seen him move. "The system is not random," he said. "I have analyzed its targeting patterns." "It is testing us. Testing us for what?" Velnor demanded. "For adaptability," Quillix replied. "The predecessors built this. They would have built it with a purpose. I believe it activates when the galaxy becomes too stagnant, too uniform. It forces evolution through crisis." Velnor's form darkened. "That is insane. The predecessors would not create something to kill people. They would if they learned from their own extinction," Quillix countered. "They died because they became too civilized to adapt. The system ensures their mistake is never repeated galaxy-wide." Another colony fell. The death toll climbed into millions. The Council kept sending ships, kept trying the same tactics, kept failing. They had protocols for every situation, but none of their protocols worked against an enemy that adapted faster than they did. Yun-hee watched the Council's military response and felt frustration building. They were being methodical, careful, following proper procedure, and people were dying while they filled out forms and waited for authorization. Her communication device blinked. Captain Sung Min calling from the Endurance. "Ambassador, we have been tracking the defense system," he said. "We think we know how to stop it, but the Council will never approve our plan." "What is your plan?" Yun-hee asked. "We need to get inside the control center. It is buried deep in the veiled sector, protected by obstacles designed to kill anyone who tries to reach it. The Council's ships cannot survive the approach, but the Endurance is small and fast. We can make it." Yun-hee glanced at Velnor, who was coordinating another failed attack. "You do not have authorization." "I know," Sung-min replied. "But people are dying. We can save them or we can follow rules. We cannot do both." Yun-hee made her decision. "You are a criminal already. What is one more crime? Go. Save as many as you can." She ended the call and walked to Velnor. "Sir, I have information about a possible solution." Before she could speak, he cut her off. "I do not want human solutions. You have done enough damage. People are dying," Yun-hee said flatly. "Are you willing to let millions more die because you are too proud to accept help from humans?" Velnor turned his full attention on her. "Your species breaks our laws, wakes our ancient enemies, and then offers to save us? This is exactly the pattern. First you cause problems, then you solve them. Then you demand gratitude and influence. It is manipulation. It is survival," Yun-hee shot back. "You are so obsessed with maintaining order that you cannot adapt when order fails. The predecessors died because of that attitude. Do you want to join them?" The command center went silent. No one spoke to a high arbiter that way, but Yun-hee was done being diplomatic. Her people were being blamed for a catastrophe they did not cause, and now the galaxy was paying the price for its own rigidity. Quillix stepped between them. "The human ship Endurance is already en route to the control center. They are not asking permission. They are simply acting." Velnor's form brightened with fury. Then they will be destroyed along with everyone else. The obstacles protecting that control center have killed every ship that tried to reach it. Every ship that followed standard tactics, Quillix said quietly. But humans do not follow standard tactics. On the screens, they watched the Endurance enter the most dangerous region of the Veiled Sector. The defense obstacles activated immediately. Energy weapons that could burn through any shield. Spatial anomalies that crushed normal ships. Automated drones that swarmed like insects. Captain Sung-min flew like he was insane. He pushed the Endurance through gaps that should not exist, dodged attacks with milliseconds to spare, used the spatial anomalies to hide and redirect enemy fire. When drones swarmed him, he flew into an energy storm that destroyed the drones and somehow survived. How is he doing that? Someone in the command center whispered. He is adapting, Quillix said. Every obstacle teaches him something. He learns from each near death and applies it to the next challenge. This is what extinction-resistant species do. They survive by refusing to accept that survival is impossible. The Endurance took damage. Life support failed in 2 sections. Shields were at 15%. Hull breaches were sealed with emergency foam. But Sung-min kept flying, kept adapting, kept pushing forward. Then Dr. Haewon's voice came over the communication channel, broadcasting to the entire galaxy. We have reached the control center. We are going inside. If we do not come back, tell humanity that we tried. The command center watched as the Endurance docked with an ancient structure that floated at the heart of the Veiled Sector. The boarding team entered. Sung-min, Haewon, Tai-ho, and 30 human volunteers. The screen showed what their suit cameras recorded. Corridors filled with radiation, gravity that shifted randomly, temperatures that swung from freezing to burning, obstacles designed to kill. Half the team died in the first 10 minutes. Radiation too strong for their suits, gravity that crushed them, extreme temperatures that cooked them. But the survivors kept moving forward, learning from each death, adapting their approach. Yoon-hee watched people she knew die on the screens. She watched Tae-ho carry a wounded volunteer through a corridor where gravity pulled sideways. She watched Haewon solve a puzzle while radiation alarms screamed in her suit. She watched Sung-min hold a door open that was designed to crush anyone who tried to pass through. 20 humans reached the control chamber. Then 15, then 10. Each obstacle cost lives. But the survivors pushed forward with the same stubborn determination that had carried humanity through 6 extinction events. They should stop, someone in the command center said. The cost is too high. They cannot stop, Quillix replied. That is what makes them what they are. They do not know how to accept defeat. 5 humans reached the central control system. Then 3. Tae-ho, Haewon, and Sung-min stood in a chamber that hummed with power. Ancient screens displayed options in the predecessor language. Haewon read the options aloud. Shutdown. Continue. Reset and evolve. Shutdown means the galaxy stays as it is, Tae-ho said. Stagnant and rigid. Continue means this thing keeps killing until it forces change, Sung-min added. Reset and evolve. Haewon studied the option. I think this option reconfigures the system. Instead of killing to force adaptation, it creates challenges that species can choose to face. Voluntary evolution through crisis simulation. Tae-ho moved toward the controls. His suit was failing. The Galactic Council chamber was different now. The same walls, the same seats, but the atmosphere had changed. Something had broken in the galaxy, and Yoon-hee could see it in every representative's face. They had watched humans die on live broadcasts. They had seen what survival really cost. High Arbiter Velnor stood at the center platform, but his crystalline form was dimmer than before. We are here to vote on humanity's future in this community, he said. They have broken our laws. They have violated our most sacred prohibitions. They have caused catastrophe and chaos, he paused. They have also saved millions of lives. They have revealed truths we had hidden from ourselves. They have proven that extinction-resistant species can be assets to this community. Yoon-hee stood at the human platform, alone now. Tae-ho was gone. Haewon and Sung-min were recovering in medical facilities, their bodies damaged by radiation in extreme conditions. She was the only one left to speak for humanity. Before the vote, she said, I want to address the charge that humans are dangerous because we refuse to accept death. You are right. We do refuse. When the supervolcano covered our world in ash, we refused to starve. When the Ice Age came, we refused to freeze. When plague swept our populations, we refused to stop breathing. When we created weapons that could destroy ourselves, we refused to use them that way. She looked around the chamber at faces from 43 different species. You see that refusal as a flaw. We see it as the only thing that kept us alive. But here is what you need to understand. We do not just refuse death for ourselves. When Captain Sungmin flew into that control center, he knew he might die. Commander Taeho knew he would die when he activated that final option. They went anyway because people needed saving. That is not logical, one of the representatives said. Sacrificing yourself for strangers serves no evolutionary purpose. You are wrong, Yunhee replied. It serves the ultimate evolutionary purpose. It ensures the group survives. Humans learned that during our extinction events, when we almost died. The people who sacrificed for others saved the species. The selfish ones died alone. We are here today because our ancestors chose community over individual survival. Ambassador Quillix rose. I have been part of this council for 230 years. I have seen stability, peace, and order. I have also seen stagnation. The predecessor's data proves what I have long suspected. We have been too focused on preventing change. We have created a galaxy so orderly that it cannot adapt when something unexpected occurs. He turned to Velnor. Humanity broke our laws. That is true. But they broke laws that were designed to maintain stagnation. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered those laws. Velnor was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. I have spent my life maintaining order because I believed order kept people safe. But I watched the defense system tear through our fleets while we followed protocol. I watched humans adapt and survive where we could not. I was wrong. The chamber stirred. High Arbiters did not admit mistakes. Not wrong about everything, Velnor continued. Extinction-resistant species are dangerous, but not in the way I thought. They are dangerous to stagnation, to complacency, to the idea that safety comes from never changing. In that sense, perhaps dangerous is exactly what this galaxy needs. He turned to Yunhee. I propose a compromise. Humanity will face consequences for breaking our laws, but those consequences will not include forced modification or quarantine. Instead, humanity will serve as the galaxy's emergency response species. When catastrophes occur, when adaptation is needed, humans will be the first to volunteer. You want us to be your crisis specialists, Yunhee said. I want you to be what you already are, Velnor replied. Survivors who help others survive. In exchange, humanity will have full membership in this community, unchanged and unmodified. But you will also bear the burden of being first into danger. Yunhee thought about what that meant. Humans would be the ones called when situations were hopeless. They would be the ones taking risks that other species could not. They would be the ones dying so others could live. We accept, she said. It is what we do anyway. The vote was called. It was not unanimous. 12 species voted to expel humanity entirely. But the majority voted for Velnor's compromise. Humanity would stay, but they would pay for their place with service and sacrifice. After the vote, Yunhee visited the medical facility where Haiwan was recovering. The doctor looked exhausted, her body still healing from radiation exposure that should have killed her. We won, Yunhee said. We get to stay human. What did it cost? Haiwan asked. Taeho's life, and humanity's safety. We are now the species the galaxy calls when they need someone to do the impossible. Haiwan smiled weakly. So nothing changed. We have been doing the impossible since the supervolcano. In another room, Captain Sungmin was being treated for injuries that would take months to heal. Yunhee visited him too and told him about the vote. I heard Taeho died activating the control system, Sungmin said. What option did he choose? Reset and evolve, Yunhee replied. The defense system no longer attacks randomly. Instead, it creates simulation chambers throughout the galaxy. Any species can enter them to face controlled extinction-level challenges. They can test themselves, adapt, evolve voluntarily. Sungmin nodded slowly, so he gave the galaxy what humanity never had. A choice about whether to face catastrophe. Yes, Yunhee confirmed. Some species are already signing up. The Korthan revealed they are extinction-resistant too. They have been hiding it for centuries, modified against their will by the old council. They want to restore their original genetics. She showed him data on her device. 17 other species are requesting the reversal of historical genetic modifications. They want to see what they were before the council made them civilized. Humanity's example showed them what they lost. And what did humanity lose? Songmin asked. Yunhee was quiet. 33 volunteers in the control center mission. Tae-ho. Our innocence about what it costs to survive. But we gained something too. We proved that our way of surviving is not a mistake. We proved that refusing to die is valuable, not dangerous. 6 months later, Yunhee stood in a new building on Earth. The Extinction Memorial, built to honor those who died, proving humanity's worth. Tae-ho's name was carved in stone along with the 33 volunteers. But the memorial was not just for them. It documented all of humanity's near extinctions, all the times humans should have died but did not. Dr. Hae-won stood beside her. She had recovered and now led the Extinction Studies Institute, a research center dedicated to understanding survival traits across species. Students from 20 different species attended her lectures. I had a Keltharian student ask me yesterday why humans survived when they should not have, Hae-won said. I told her it is because we could not imagine accepting death. When the supervolcano erupted, when our population dropped to almost nothing, we did not know it was impossible to survive. So we just kept trying. She smiled. She asked if that was stubbornness or stupidity. I told her it was both. Captain Sungmin approached them. He had recovered from his injuries and returned to commanding the Endurance. But now his mission was different. He trained crews from other species in adaptation techniques, in unconventional thinking, in refusing to accept impossible situations. The Korthan asked me to help them restore their extinction resistance traits, he said. They want to relearn how to face catastrophe without following protocols. It is strange teaching old species how to be young again. It is strange teaching anyone that survival sometimes means breaking rules, Yunhee added. But that is what humanity brings to the galaxy. We remind them that order is good, but adaptability is necessary. Stability is comfortable, but the ability to change is what keeps you alive. They walked through the memorial together, reading names and remembering stories. Outside the building, Earth turned beneath them. Somewhere above, the Endurance waited for its next mission. Somewhere across the galaxy, species were entering the predecessor's simulation chambers, voluntarily facing extinction scenarios to strengthen themselves. Ambassador Quillix had sent Yunhee a message the previous week. The Galactic Council was establishing the Endurance Compact, a formal alliance of extinction-resistant species. They would be first responders to catastrophes, teachers of adaptation, and reminders that survival is always possible for those who refuse to give up. Do you think we did the right thing? Hae-won asked. We paid such a high price to stay human. Was it worth it? Yunhee thought about Tae-ho, about the volunteers, about the cost of proving humanity's value. She thought about her grandmother, who survived the climate wars by refusing to surrender. She thought about all the generations of humans who faced extinction and chose to keep fighting. We did not really have a choice, she said finally. Accepting modification would have meant accepting that our way of surviving was wrong. That the people who died keeping humanity alive through 6 extinction events died for nothing. We owed it to them to prove that our stubborn, dangerous, impossible way of surviving was worth something. She looked at the memorial wall, at the names carved in stone, at the history of humanity's refusal to die. We should have died out. 6 times we should have gone extinct, but we did not. Not because we were lucky,